the 10th, 2017, and today's topic will be, and subject for open hearing will be referring to the cannabis ordinance that City Council is looking at adopting as well. The Planning Commission had their meeting yesterday, and they voted 4-0 for the actual Planning Commission recommended that the City Council adopt ordinance 1400 and 1401 relating to medical adult commercial use of cannabis and continuing the ban on dispensaries. So at this point, prior to me bringing up the public hearing, I'm going to ask Councilman Ricardo Pacheco to lead us in an invocation. We'll follow by the flag salute. Good evening.
Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity for all of us to serve our city, our firefighters, our police, all those that in the armed forces. Watch over them, keep them out of harm's way. Watch our national leaders as they make decisions and important issues.
Amen. Thank you. This will face the flag. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mayor, I just want to
Councilmember.
test my speaker. So can you guys hear me back there, Gene? You guys all hear me? Mr. Tuttle? Good? Okay, thank you.
Good idea.
All righty. First of all, I want to say thank you and good evening to everyone. As I just stated, the Planning Commission had their meeting yesterday where there was a 4-0 vote in favor of the actual proposed commercial commercial use of cannabis and the continuing the ban of dispensaries in the city of Baldwin Park. So what I will do at this, thank you very much. At this point, Madam City Clerk Alejandra Ávila, we're going to go ahead and do the roll call, please. Thank you, Councilmember Monica Garcia.
Councilmember Cruz Baca.
Here.
Councilmember Monica Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rubio.
I will move to excuse her if she called. So that's my motion, to excuse her.
And Mayor Lozano.
Yes, President, thank you. At this point, I'll make a motion to excuse Vice Mayor Susan Rubio.
Second.
Second, any objections? See none, so move.
Mayor?
Right, yes, Councilmember Monica Garcia.
Given that we had all agreed to a date for this item, and it's such an important vote for our community, and I'm sure that Susan Rubio would like to participate. Perhaps there was something that came up on her schedule. But could we entertain the idea of rescheduling this item so that all council members are present for this very important vote for the community?
Mayor,
go ahead. Councilmember.
I just think it's important that we move forward. I know that a lot of our staff has been working very hard on this. I know there's some time issues with moving it forward. And for whatever reasons, I don't know if Councilwoman Rubio is coming later or not, but I just say we move forward. There's a second reading. She could have her input at the second reading. But I would just suggest to keep moving. I just think that, to move the city forward, there's a lot of, this is very important, I think, in terms of future revenue for the city. And I just think we need to continue to move on this item.
All right. Okay, so at this point, Councilmember Monica Garcia motion to, was that a motion to move to table?
I think I agree with you that this is a very important issue, and it has implications across the board regarding revenue, and then also regarding public safety, and so I think it would be only fair that all council members be present to cast such an important vote on this issue. And so I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to reschedule. Go ahead.
Yes, legal counsel is the
I'll object.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Garcia and Mr. Mayor, I thought I would just mention sort of some timing issues. This doesn't have to be dispositive of what you're going to decide, but I thought you should know about them before you vote on the issue. The state has passed regulations that will start issuing licenses in January 1, 2018. For those operators that have a local license and are in operation, they will then get to the front of the line on the state licenses. If you don't have a license from a local entity on January 1 and you're not in operation, either one, then you go to the back of the line to the state licenses. So then the people get preference that had both at January 1. The concern about that is that it'll probably be 12 to 24 months before anybody could get a state license if they're not operational and have a license by January 1. So the reason that we compressed the schedule like we did was to allow whoever gets permits here in Baldwin Park to have at least 3 months to build their building and get operational before January 1. And the scheduling issues here is that you can only pass an ordinance on a regular meeting. So you can't do it in a special meeting. So that's the reason why I set the special meeting, so that we could introduce it for the first reading. Then we would have our second reading at a regular meeting on August 16th. And then it would become effective on September 16th, which would give our operators 3 months to get up and running, which, given the complexity of all the lights and the videos and all, it's going to take a while. They're not going to be able to put up a building in a month. Okay, if we don't do it tonight and we move it off, the very first time that we could do it would be, the first reading would be in September now, because we can't notice it for the other August 16th. Then we'd have to have a second reading, a second meeting in September, and then it would become effective at the end of October. And that would give operators about 2 months to get up and running. And I had received concerns from some of the people that are already interested that would not be enough time for them to be operational. So that's not dispositive, as I said, but I thought you should have that information before making any decision.
So let's go ahead.
I mean, it's good information to have, but again, I think this is such an important decision. And I understand the first and second reading, but this is really going to set that in motion. And I think it's important, so we should all be present. That's my position.
All right.
I object.
Yes.
I would like to move forward. There is a time, I think, that we need to look at and be conscious. We have had a lot of workshops, which I believe that a lot of us are familiar. We've had the policy. There was a reading yesterday at the Planning Commission. I did attend, so I did hear a lot of that. So I object. I would like to continue today.
Motion on the floor. Is there?
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? And that's to continue. I'll go ahead and second. Is there any objections?
Yes.
Okay, one objection, Madam City Clerk.
Okay. Councilmember Garcia?
Yes?
Councilmember Baca?
No.
Councilmember Pacheco?
No.
Mayor Lozano?
Yes, so no motion, because there's 2-2, so we're tying. All right, so, interesting, okay.
So what happens? The
So at this
city
point,
attorney
Well, we
can't-
just continue because
The motion fails.
So we're going to,
2-2, the motion
we're just
fails.
going to move forward.
Whatever the city council decides, but the motion to
Technically, we probably can, because if they're tie, we're at a tie, right?
well, no, the motion fails, so
Right.
there's no that it's like it didn't occur. It failed,
The motion
Right.
to move it fails, yes.
Right.
and so all you're left with now is the special meeting.
All right, so let's go ahead and open up I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing then. All right, so at this point.
And
since-
Mayor, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Yes, that's fine.
I would also like, because staff has gone through a lot of trouble to put this together, there has been a lot of dialogue back and forth. This isn't something new that just popped up. I would really like to give legal counsel a chance to be able to explain some of this. Yes, we probably won't make any decisions, but I think since we're here, we might as well take good use of our time. And so I would really like for legal counsel to at least explain some of the points and so forth. We do have people here in the audience that were contacted me as well about attending this meeting today. So I think we should.
Sure, absolutely.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to go ahead and open up we'll open up the public communication. Anyone wishing to speak, you have approximately 3 minutes. Good evening. And this is referencing the cannabis subject on the agenda.
Right, the public communication.
Yes.
They can speak on anything except what's on the agenda.
Okay,
So
that's
for
fine.
the agenda, they're going to have an opportunity during the public hearing.
Okay, oh, that's right, okay. Sorry about that, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Chadha.
Okay, so this is on the cannabis.
That's correct.
Either or, because it's going to come back for the public
Okay.
hearing.
As far as I know, I don't think we have any growers in the city right now. And in realistic terms, nobody can build a building, put sprinklers in, and do all the requirements that need to be done within the time frame to get this done by the end of the year. And I'm kind of puzzled because the buildings that you're going to allow, where you're going to allow this is the IC, which is part of over in my area and stuff. And all the areas pretty much in the ICs, they're run down buildings. They're old buildings. You're going to have to bring in big water lines for the sprinklers and everything else and have sprinkler systems put in this. This is going to be a very unusual thing to be done, and really it's going to have to start with new buildings, tilt-up buildings, and done. This isn't a 3-month project. Hell, it takes 3 months just to get a permit through the city, let alone get the building going. So I don't see where this is coming in, and if we're going to rush this and put them in the old dilapidated buildings and they're not really up to snuff, this isn't going to cut it. And running through this and being quick, this isn't our responsibility to hurry up and make these guys get their permits. This is a long thing that's been tested and been done through, and the background checks that need to be done on these guys through the PD, and I hope that Mike Taylor and those guys go through and check these people before they even get into the city and allowed to operate. And then we're going to do wholesale only, where they're just going to be a manufacturing but not retail. Now, who's going to stop these guys from selling behind the doors? And so then we've got the public that's going to be growing it in their backyard. And the police got extra work on top of that, because we're going to be doing that too. And I know it's a tough law to try and prevent. So we need to really we need to take back and not rush this thing. Because what you guys are doing right now and what I just heard here, this 3-month span, it's a joke. You can't do that. In real life, you can't do that unless you're paying off the planning commission to go out there and planning department. It takes 2 months to get something through the planning commission. So it isn't going to happen. And then if you show preference, then that's another problem. So if somebody gets a speedy thing through here, then there's going to be talk about, did we do buddy favors? So I think that this thing need to be, the first time I'll ever agree with Monica Garcia, that it should be looked at closely and not just jump down and start doing your thing here. Because this is wrong what you're doing right now. You're trying to benefit a few people to come in here, open up something quick, and it's going to be half-ass. Okay, that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Move on with public communication. Okay, if no further interest, I will now declare the public communication closed. I will go ahead and open up the public hearing, and I'll go with anyone that is opposing at this time. All right, seeing no opposition, I will
say I oppose, but I don't need to give any more of my speech on it.
all right, sounds good. All right, so at this point, I will go ahead and entertain anyone wishing to speak in favor. This is your opportunity. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
I'm not sure if anyone remembers me, but my name is Jacob Dunn.
Yes, sir.
I had come out to the city of Baldwin Park, and I have been outspoken in favor of medical cannabis since the end of 2015. I was a little disappointed that no one in the city had ever written me back. I had reached out to you guys on multiple occasions. I had reached out to all the city planners. I had reached out to the mayor, yourself. I had reached out to all the city council members, and actually only one person wrote me back. And thank you very much, Mrs. Baca. And so anyways, long story short, I have a long tenure of growing. I own my own medical marijuana business. I specialize in cannabidiol, or CBD, the non-psychoactive component of medical cannabis. So I am interested in a permit in the city, but what I'm also interested in, aside from cultivation, is a manufacturing permit, because we produce tinctures, capsules, etc. And so something like that wouldn't take long to get set up. It pretty much, I would like to get to the front of the line, and I hope this isn't just about the city, giving their friends, the first chance. I have been talking to you guys for so long. And so I just hope you guys give So Eden a chance. So that's pretty much what I want to say. This isn't a process that it should be rushed. I agree with Mrs. Garcia, but I also think that this is going to take a long time, especially for the infrastructure. And this gentleman brought up a really, really interesting thing. I mean, I don't know if the city is understanding how much power this is going to take. For a huge grow, I mean, you're talking several $100,000 in electricity costs a year. And, my family owns buildings in Baldwin Park, and the amount of power that these buildings need, Edison says that you have to install entire meter rooms for these buildings, so you have to redo the entire power complex. So, just consider that. I only have a minute left. One thing I did want to bring up too is the talk of armed security guards 24 hours a day. In the meetings, you guys were talking, in the workshops, you guys were talking about, anyways, I kind of lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. Okay. I'm not the best public speaker, but the amount of security you guys would need for a grow like this, with the police department always watching, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It costs over $100,000 a year for one security guard or two security guards to patrol the premises 24 hours a day. And for a small company like mine, that would be my salary for the year. And so just take that into consideration with the live feed into the police station. That 24 armed security isn't like a necessity. For a dispensary, I could completely understand that because you have a retail storefront. But for a nondescript grow, like you guys said, you couldn't see it from the street, I think you should take into consideration there's not necessarily a need for a security guard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, moving along. Anyone else who should speak in favor?
Hello, my name is Brendan Seidner. Just want to say thank you very much for allowing cannabis to move forward, and hopefully we can all learn a lot from it. My cousin Jacob invited me to come because finally I see a city that's open and willing to discuss the benefits of cannabis. One thing I just don't like is dispensaries not allowed here. I feel it would benefit the city to have a complete seed to sale in one room, no outsource. That would eliminate the black market, with the income of what it needs to be. We can have, veteran specials. All walks of life can come in. So it would be for everybody. And we can have teachings and, just more of there's a lot of learning curve for everybody. People don't pay attention, don't want to pay attention. I understand. But cannabis is beneficial. So thank you very much, and hopefully we can get this done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, moving along with public hearing. Anyone else wishing to speak? See no further interest. I will now declare the public hearing closed. All right, council members have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Cruz Baca.
I would just like, for the benefit of going
Sure.
through briefly the policy, like I said, I did attend the Planning Commission, and Mr. Olivas did give a kind of a brief explanation of everything. But would that be Gus or the chief, or who's?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead. City Legal Counsel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Gus has a small presentation as it relates to the economic impact, and then I have a presentation for the staff report.
Thank you.
Whenever we're ready to do that.
All right, go ahead, Gus.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. The presentation I have before you is the same presentation that our CEO, Shannon Yahtzee, presented at the 5 public workshops that had started about a year ago and taken places at different locations throughout the city, including the ARC building. So what you have before you, of course, are 2 ordinances. One to amend the city's code to delete the prohibition language that's in there right now, and City Attorney Robert Tafoya is going to go further into that. And we also have the ordinance that pertains to the new chapter for cannabis cultivation and manufacturing. Now, as we all know, voters of California have approved the legal use of cannabis. So, again, we're looking at commercial growth only. And the state, as City Attorney Tafoya has indicated, is going to start issuing licenses in January of 2018. So that is the reason for the rush that we have here. To cultivate, test, manufacture, and transport cannabis products. No dispensaries are being proposed by the city. This is strictly, again, manufacturing, growth, and transportation of cannabis products. And again, the cities will have local control. There will be city entitlement required, and the city is looking at development agreements for that purpose, in addition to the state having to license. And the cities can choose to allow or not allow such businesses. In this case, staff is recommending the city of Baldwin Park do allow the manufacturing uses, but not the dispensaries. And again, only for indoor cultivation. No outdoor growth is going to be allowed, and that's specifically identified in the new chapter. And again, dispensaries not considered at this time. Economic development, this is one of the main reasons staff is recommending this. Jobs and revenue through the approval of development agreements. This is not something that's just going to be coming in permitted by right. Whoever wants to go forward is going to have to go through a development agreement process. And there is a total of 10 licenses that are being identified presently by the City of Baldwin Park as to consider for cultivation. Again, jobs, 500 and 600 local jobs could be created directly and indirectly through this, the cannabis growth. And again, development agreements could request that Baldwin Park residents be considered first for employment. City revenue, we've identified, just based on other growths out there, city could generate 3 to 4 million in city revenue based on those 10 licenses. And city's general fund is currently 27.6 million. This is comparable to adding a new auto dealership row to the city, which again staff sees as very significant. So again, the city benefits. Funds can be used to improve current economic development fund or fund public safety programs through hiring new police officers. New jobs will provide additional revenue also in the city by providing new customers that will now shop in Baldwin Park retail centers. Now I'll turn it over to City Attorney Tafoya for the staff report.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Gus-Romo.
Thank you, Mr. Romo. Before I'm starting the staff report, I'd really like to give thanks to everybody that contributed and really recognize the people that worked very, very hard on this, because it was something that we did in a very short period of time, and everybody did a great job. It was a team effort. David Olivas did a wonderful job, former city council member here in Baldwin Park and former city attorney at my office. Gus Romo and Amy Harbin just worked literally around the clock, I'm sure. They did an extraordinary job. I thank you, Gus. I thank Amy for all that you did. We couldn't have done it without you, so thank you very much, and everyone that was involved in this effort. Okay, the reason we're here today, Mayor, City Council, is we're considering 3 items. Number 1, to amend Table 153.050.020 to allow medical and adult cannabis cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution uses within the industrial, commercial, and industrial zones with a development agreement pursuant to Section 153.210, Parts 15. And number 2, to delete subsections 153.120.330.c and d from the municipal code relating to cultivation and distribution of cannabis. Those subsections we passed in March of 2016, as you may recall, and we banned the cultivation and manufacturing of medical use marijuana in order to preserve our rights to regulate later on. Number 3, amend the municipal code to add Chapter 127, which will include development standards and regulations relating to permitting medical and adult cannabis cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution uses, including but not limited to distance standards from sensitive uses, security plans, signage, insurance, and odor control. And when I say cultivation, of course, that's the grow. Manufacturing is the manufacturing of the oils and the edibles and things of that nature. And distribution is the transportation or the distribution of the actual product. It's not retail, it's not distribution out of a store or something of that nature. Okay? So anytime you hear the word distribution, you can think of that as transportation, to transport the product. These changes, as Mr. Romo indicated, include 2 ordinances. Ordinance 1400, which is incorporating Chapter 127, which is the actual ordinance for permitting cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution, and Resolution 1401, or Ordinance 1401, excuse me, to add the land use chart, this particular zoning regulation, and to repeal the bar on cultivation and manufacturing. So Ordinance 1401 adds it to the land use chart and repeals the sections that barred it previously, and Ordinance 1400 is the actual chapter that deals with the regulation of the cannabis. California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, we've determined that we're exempt from CEQA in this case because the action that's being taken today will not impact the environment, because all we're doing is passing an ordinance. We're not actually putting anything into use. We're not adopting a use. Now, Each applicant will need to do an environmental impact study, and that will be done as people apply and they receive permits. Regarding notice requirements, this was properly and duly noticed in the newspaper. We noticed it in the Examiner. We had 5 public meetings. We had approximately 100 people that attended those meetings that occurred on June 19th, June 26th, July 10th, and July 17th. At those particular meetings, I was at those meetings, and there was no opposition that was expressed, although there were citizens that attended and asked various questions. The legal history of cannabis in California. In 1996, the voters of the state of California approved Proposition 215, which was codified as the Compassionate Use Act, or the CUA. And essentially that made it legal for you to sell medical marijuana here in the state of California. And so that's really what started all of this, is back in 1996, the Compassionate Use Act. Then in 2000, there were a number of different laws that occurred before that. I'm not going to go over all of the legal history, but it's certainly in your staff report and the other documents that you've been provided. In 2016, Prop 64 was passed by the voters. That allowed adult use marijuana. And the next thing that happened was Senate Bill 94 that really combined the adult use with the medical use. And it sort of blended those two laws, and it's called the, this was a long one and I did not memorize it, Medical and Adult Use Cannabis Regulation and Safety Act. We based our Section 127 and our entire ordinance on this particular Senate Bill 94. So everything that is in the ordinance today is compliant with the state law and with Senate Bill 94, Proposition 64, and with the Compassionate Use Act that I mentioned earlier. We also had a planning commission meeting yesterday that I want to briefly summarize for you, and then I'll go over the rest of the staff report. The planning commission had a public hearing yesterday, and they considered the cannabis ordinance, Section 127. They voted 4-0 to approve of that ordinance. There were some comments by some of the commissioners. One comment, I believe only one comment, and one comment was that one commissioner had suggested to add restaurants to the sensitive uses, which are not there now. Right now we have schools and parks and things of that nature as sensitive uses that I'll go over. And again, that passed 4-0, but there was that recommendation by the commissioner that we expand that. That is not in the ordinance. If you wish to expand the ordinance to include restaurants, you'd have to do that from the dais today. In addition, one other thing is we had some typographical errors that I want to indicate to the council. On one of them, there was a clarification because on our zoning map and our zoning chart, it indicates what things are allowed by right and what's allowed by discretion. And there was a P in there under the 1401 ordinance, which would mean that it would be allowed by right. And this is not allowed by right. This is a discretionary permit that's issued. And so therefore, we added an asterisk to the P to indicate that this is not a permit that's allowed by right. Okay, so now that we have legal history and what happened in the Planning Commission, I'd like to go over the city's regulation of cannabis and go over with you some very significant issues that are in the ordinance. Number one, there will be no manufacturing or cultivation site will be located within 600 feet of a school, daycare, or youth center. No manufacturing or cultivation site will be allowed within 50 feet of a residential zone. We don't have to be concerned about that because nothing's even close to a residential zone in the industrial, commercial, or commercial zones. Number two, all manufacturing and cultivation sites will be limited to certain city, industrial, and industrial commercial zones. Number three, all manufacturing and cultivation will occur in enclosed locked structures. Number four, all manufacturing and cultivation sites and operations therein and all equipment used must be in compliance with all applicable state and local laws, including all building, electrical, and fire codes. Number five, the use and storage of hazardous materials, including flammable gas, flammable liquid, and combustible materials, must comply with the fire code standards. Number 6, all manufacture and cultivation sites are required to be fire sprinkled under the fire code standards. Number 7, from a public right-of-way, there should be no exterior evidence of the manufacture or cultivation of cannabis except for any authorized signage. Number 8, all transportation of cannabis must comply with state law. Number 9, high standards for granting permits, and we have many grounds for denial of a permit. Number 10, requirements for security cameras to be installed and maintained on the sites. Number 11, alarm systems are required for all sites. Number 12, require that the licensees implement a system to track the cultivation and manufacturing of cannabis in order to prevent the licensee from diverting or transporting cannabis to any location not authorized by state law. Number 12, video surveillance requirements. Number 13, all applicants must execute an agreement indemnifying the city from any claims, damages, injuries, or liabilities of any kind associated with the operation of the marijuana facilities. Number 13, requirements that the facilities maintain insurance in the amounts and types acceptable to the city, including naming the city as an additional insured. Number 14, requiring inspections by the chief of police or the chief executive officer or his designee or their designees of the facilities. Excuse me. Number 15, control and regulation of noxious odors. Number 16, provide the citywide powers to summarily suspend or revoke permits or disqualify an applicant from the registration process. I mentioned, those are sort of the main summaries of what we're looking at. Some of the factors that will be considered are the suitability of the proposed property. This will be the factors that will be considered in the application process and to determine who might be suitable for a permit here in Baldwin Park. Suitability of the proposed property, suitability of the security plan, suitability of the business plan and financial record keeping, criminal history, regulatory compliance history, good legal standing, community engagement. Again, these are all factors that will be considered when someone applies. Environmental impact and labor relations. The permits will not allow to be transferred or changed in ownership in any way. There will not be subletting that will not be authorized in any of the locations. So if you get a permit, you're not allowed to sublease and have somebody else grow where you're growing, and you're not allowed to transfer your permit if you were to receive one. I mentioned earlier that time was of the essence because of the state law of January 1, 2018. I understand that there be some complications in terms of putting up a building in 3 months, but my understanding is that these businesses are very well funded and that they've done this before and that they'll be able to get up and running in 3 months. That concludes my comments in the staff report, Mr. Mayor. If I have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yes, Councilman Cruz-Baca.
First of all, I don't know if anybody got the text, but Vice Mayor Rubio's on her way.
Yes.
Okay. I think that by saying that we're rushing this I think it's a wrong use of words. Staff has worked on this for a long time, and we've had workshops, about 5 or 6 of the workshops, both in the afternoon and in the evening. We've had input from our police department, our chief. We've had input from different sources and even looking at other cities that had different policies. So I think that there's a misconception that we're rushing into this just because we want to meet the December 31 deadline. I think that we could word it a little differently so that way it doesn't sound like let's go straight and beat everybody. I think somebody used the analogy of the gold rush. Let's just jump in our horse and let's get over there. I think that we need to explain that we've worked on this for a while now. So legal counsel, if you would like to please explain that so that people of the audience don't think that we're just going ahead with this just sight unseen.
Thank you, Councilmember Baca. That is correct. We've been working on this since March of 2016. Now, we haven't been drafting the ordinance since March of 2016, but we have been discussing this since early of 2016. It's been on the City Council agenda and studies. I think we've had at least 3 study sessions on it in upstairs in the 3rd floor. So even though we have compressed the schedule for the first and second reading, that's really the only thing that we've done that, quote unquote, is a rush, is we've compressed the first and second reading so it doesn't have to take so long. But other than that, we have been looking at this issue for many, many months, not just a couple weeks or days.
And like I said, I'm just going to sort of repeat, the workshops were very informative, and yes, there were some workshops where we had about 30-some people. I know Mr. Dunn and some of his colleagues were there as well. A lot of our residents were there, but then there were also some workshops where there were 2 or 3 of our staff members only. But we did reach out to the community. There was something written in the newspaper. I'm not sure if it was in the Now, but there was a lot of outreach, community outreach, and a chance for a lot of residents and people to ask a lot of questions. That's why I made a lot of phone calls today to get residents to come out to sort of tell us how they felt, good and bad. Because without those comments, we don't know how the residents and the businesses feel about what's going to be going on within their community. So thank you for those that are here or listening to us. Thank you so very much. Thank you to staff again, and for the council members and the mayor who did put a lot of time in the meetings and so forth. So thank you, Chief, and everybody. Gus, who's new here on board, but yet has done a really nice job. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Monica Garcia.
Thank you. I've talked with different folks in the community, and a lot of folks, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but the folks that I've spoken with are either not aware or they were not available for the community meetings. And I would like to see this posted in a Now newsletter and distributed to all the households in the community, just to really understand where they stand on this issue and making it as easy for them to chime in as possible. I'm not certain that, I know that we have engaged in some community outreach and we had some hearings, some public meetings, but I think to bolster that, it would definitely put me in a place where I can make a decision to really understand where is the community on this issue. And as I've tested the community members that I've spoken with, they're really not aware. They haven't received the information or they haven't been available, unfortunately. So I think that there are some positives, and I do want to thank everybody that has worked on this, and I know we have been discussing it for several months. The positives would be that the site we're looking at for the overlay would be segregated from the neighborhoods of our community. The positives would be that we're not allowing dispensaries in the community, but we are considering the cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution. Two things that I take into consideration, where again I'm kind of in the dark, is have we really reached out to as many community members as possible? And there must be about 20,000 households in the city of Baldwin Park approximately. And my question is, have we really engaged them? Have we touched them on this issue? The other item is that I understand that the Los Angeles County Police Chiefs Association has taken a position in opposition to marijuana, to cannabis. And so I don't think that I've heard enough from our chief. I don't think I've ever heard our chief even give, an analysis of how we would address any of the public safety concerns, related to this type of use. And again, I know that the Los Angeles County Police Chiefs Association has opposed. So I'd like to know, why they've opposed and how do we mitigate that and how are we planning on addressing that and being proactive. So at this point in time, I am not comfortable moving forward with this ordinance for the reasons that I've stated. And I feel like doesn't mean that I can't be supportive in the future, but at this point in time, I'm not comfortable approving this resolution, this ordinance. So I'm going to take the position of, at this time, I don't support. And for the reasons that I've stated, I would really like to see us touch as many households in Baldwin Park as possible, make sure that we've canvassed the areas, that we've been as responsive as possible regarding the community, and that we've looked at why is the Police Chiefs Association opposed to this, and what are we doing? What are we going to do? What measures are we going to put in place to mitigate any of those concerns? I haven't received any of that information at this point in time.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Cruz Baca.
I don't know if the chief is going to speak, but I would like to say that I went to several of the workshops, and the chief was present, along with Amy Harbin, showing where the map and what it would entail in our industrial areas. Recently we had our new community development, Gus Romo. We had legal counsel there. We had several staff members that were there. As far as outreach, we have reached out, or at least I have, to the school district, to several board members, to several of our faith-based organizations. Why they didn't attend the meetings, I don't understand, but I do know that we did reach out to, or at least personally myself, I did reach out to a lot of households and a lot of people based with either different organizations or people that I would run into at supermarkets and so forth. Also, some of the people, like Mr. Dunn that's here, I kept some of the people that I would receive correspondences from. I would keep them abreast as to what was going on with our meetings. So there has been a lot of outreach. Now, the participation, I can't force people to come to meetings, but I believe that the word has been out there and staff has done a really good job. Like I said, there were meetings in the afternoon at the Senior Center, as well as in the evening, both at the Performing Arts Center, as well as the ARC right here next door. So, and the chief, like I said, and some of our PD, a lot of our officers were present at the time and did voice what their concerns were as far as the security. I know that Mr. Plata attended many of the meetings. He was very vocal, spoke for a long time to our chief and a lot of our staff. So I don't know if the chief would like to sort of briefly, I don't know if there's time for that, for the chief to sort of briefly discuss what he discussed at these meetings,
Sure.
if that's all right?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Absolutely. Chief Taylor, sir.
Absolutely. In response to Councilwoman Monica Garcia's comments about LA County police chiefs, the opinions with the LA County police chiefs are varied. You have some that are for it, you have some that are in the middle, and then you have some that are just against marijuana as a whole. But most all of them are against marijuana, the shops that sell it on the street corners because of the problems that they encounter with that. But in terms of this is a commercial grow, and this is a pharmaceutical type cannabis that's being grown. And one of the things I expressed in the meeting is that I'm actually for it. I'm one of the first chiefs to come out openly and be for it. And the reasons I am for it is because I know, one, from a personal point, some of the medical benefits that come from this type of cannabis grow. I have several friends of mine that have cancer, and they use it to, for pain, and they also use it to increase their appetite. One of the unfortunate things with cancer is that you tend to lose weight and you lose your appetite. But that's on a personal level, but professionally, what I see is that, and I explained to the audience, is that I've been in the city of Baldwin Park now for 36 years. And I've dealt with narcotics and illicit drugs as an undercover narcotics officer and as a supervisor in charge of narcotics teams for many years. And so I know the ins and outs, the goods and the bads dealing with drugs and the effects that it can have. I know that cannabis has been looked at as a gateway drug over the years, where you get into much rougher stuff like heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines down the road. But we're not talking about that. What we're talking about here is we're talking about a commercial manufacturing, pharmaceutical grade cannabis that's going to be used for medicinal purposes. There is not going to be any street corner sales from what I understand with the ordinance in the city. This is in a commercial area. It's going to be heavily protected. They're required to provide security. We're also going to have 24-hour surveillance in and outside of the facility that's going to be streamed into the police department that we'll be monitoring. And if you drove by the place, one, you're not going to be able to smell it because of the system that they're going to have installed, which is required in the ordinance. You wouldn't know it's there unless you knew it was there, as silly as that sounds. It's not going to be near schools. It's not going to be near places where children are, even though it wouldn't affect that with the type of facility that it is. But just for purely civic mindedness. So it's going to be in areas, locations where the public normally wouldn't go unless they were to stray off or whatever you call it. One of the great places that I saw was we call it Perez Place, is that commercial area down off of the 605 and the 10. There's only one way in and one way out, and those are all commercial industrial buildings off of a bridge that's across the wash. Somebody'd have to scale a cliff to get to it. But again, I'm not making light of it. They're going to have plenty of security, as I described. And if they had not done this in the fashion, and if it is not the type of pharmaceutical-grade marijuana that I know that they're going to be manufacturing, I personally would not have endorsed this. I do know that the Police Officers Association, the Police Officers Management Association for your city both support this wholeheartedly. They've weighed in on it personally. They do support it. The benefits that are going to come from this, the revenue that's going to be brought into the city, is going to help bolster the police department in terms of offsetting some of the costs that you have for police security, especially at special events that we do all of the time, the overtime that it costs. We can hire more police officers. And it is a known statistical fact that the more visibility and numbers of police presence that you have on the street, crime drops exponentially in terms of the police presence. So the benefits that I see for the city of Baldwin Park, where I've been for 36 years now, to me far outweigh any of the other challenges that people may think that might come from this because of the way that the security has been, I must say, very masterfully done and put together. It's a very in-depth policy that Mr. Tafoya's office has put together for the city, and it covers a lot of things. He's asked advice from the police department and all the department heads when putting this together. So this wasn't put together, he may say it was put together quickly, but it was put together with a lot of in-depth information from all your professionals on your city staff that have a lot of years of experience in terms of these type of things. So with that said, I support it wholeheartedly. Your police unions support it wholeheartedly for the benefit that it brings into the city and the fact that it is going to be very secure. And like I said, you wouldn't know it if you didn't know it when you drive by it. So if there's any other questions that you have, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Appreciate the information that you provided. Council members? Yes, Councilmember.
Well, I just wanted to add, I'm
Yes.
sure everyone's already discussed it, but this is an issue that's been ongoing, I would say, starting 2 years ago in many different ways. One of the ways that we discussed it 2 years ago was just the possibility. There is a lot of interest from many different groups that were using it for medical purposes, and there's other people that were expressing interest. So we brought it up to our constituency, and at the time we had a lot of opposition. So we took a step back, and then it was brought back. So this has been going back and forth for a little while, and I think all of us, if I remember correctly, I can speak for all of us. Everyone was against this. But, as time passes and things change, for example, at the state level, of course, we have to take into consideration now that they've made it, they've legalized it. And so we brought it once again to our constituency, and we've had an opportunity to meet and discuss this in length. Even though we just had 6 meetings, and we made sure that it was in different areas of the city, every corner, because we want to make sure that it's accessible to everyone that lives in the city. And I think it was advertised quite heavily. I make sure that I promoted it. We've been promoting it as a council for a little while. We really wanted to take into consideration what the residents of Baldwin Park were saying to us. We continue to have groups that come up and say that they need it for medical purposes. I personally, I teach, as all of you know, and I know that there's a lot of families that benefit from the seizure situation. They have children with seizures. They have, epilepsy. They have just all these ailments that they've been able to help kids. So again, all of us were torn day one. We said no initially, and then it's just evolved and progressed. So we're at a point right now where we've had a lot of work done. It hasn't been a drive-by, if I may use that expression. It's been really looked into. We also make sure that we did an analysis on all the surrounding cities or cities in the state of California, just to make sure that we look at models that have been implemented. We look at the benefits that they've been getting from moving forward. And so it hasn't been taken lightly. And again, I'll speak for all of us. I think we've all done our due diligence to make sure we try to understand it. So I understand this is the first reading, and I do value the comments that Councilmember Monica Garcia was just expressing, the need to advertise. And I would also encourage us to make sure that, if we move forward, we continue to make sure that we do it through the now, we do it through our concerts, we do it through every avenue that we have to make sure that everyone finds the information. But just for the residents' purpose, one of the issues that I think we all had concerns with is safety. And we did look at other models, and one of the things that we were exploring is having these individuals that choose to come to our community actually finance some of the policing in our city. We also discussed having these individuals provide financial support to all our city programs. And other cities have been successful in having that partnership in terms of supporting things that we need in the city. We continue to wrestle with this. This is not something that none of us take lightly, but again, we see it already pressing where the state is coming down on us, and at the end, we're going to be left with no choice. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that it's been a 2-year process where we all opposed it, and then we continue to oppose it until the second year we started seeing where the state was headed, and so it's been a long process. Bottom line, I want to make sure everyone understands it hasn't been taken lightly, and it's not a decision we've taken in one day, and we've done a lot of exploration. So here we are, and I just want to make sure everyone understands that it's been something that we don't take lightly, and we'll continue to look at all the safety issues in this item. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much.
Mayor, if I may very briefly.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Mayor, I just had I'm sorry, were you going to say
Thank
something?
you, yes.
Go right ahead.
I hope I did not give the wrong impression earlier that this was somehow the drafting and the putting together of this ordinance was somehow rushed in a way that compromised in any way the ordinance. I want everyone to know that my office personally reviewed literally every city that has an ordinance allowing cannabis to look at that and make sure that we get the best ordinance we can. And we had the advantage of looking at all these ordinances, what these cities did, things that worked, some things that didn't work, and we're able to change our ordinance and make it a better ordinance. I also reached out to industry experts. I did not consider myself an expert in cannabis when we started this. I still don't. I think I know a lot about it, but I reached out to all the experts that are out there, including Mr. Reyes's firm and other places, and people gave me a lot of good input into that. And so I had literally 3 lawyers in my office working on this ordinance for a long time. So we put a lot of work into it, put a lot of time into it, and it really was vetted very, very thoroughly. And as I said earlier, we compressed the time for the first and second reading, but the actual workup of this ordinance occurred over many, many months with many, many lawyers and many, many people. And we did go out to staff, all the department heads, Chief Taylor and others, to make sure that they looked at the ordinance as well and gave me their input. So we did the very best we could in that regard.
All right, at this point, Councilman Ricardo Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add that, in other words, I agree with a lot of the ideas a lot of our council members have brought up, but also just we've done a lot of outreach, I think, on this topic. I think last year when we started looking at this a lot closer, probably sometime in October of about last year, where the city council really started to have workshops up here on the 3rd floor, and we began to bring in experts to explain to us the cannabis issue. And like most people, there's a stigma with cannabis. It's about smoking a joint. You have the impression that it's a bunch of kids hanging out and taking a joint and doing nothing after that. But when you really start to hear a lot of the experts that come out, a lot of them are medical doctors and they're professionals in the fields. There's experts in finance to be able to finance this type of a marijuana business. And I learned that, from the medical perspective, there's so much uses that really help people out, from issues that you may have either mentally or issues that you may have with cancer, as it was mentioned earlier, and a lot of just broad spectrum of medical issues that we haven't even explored yet that are still being researched. And I think that, marijuana and medical cannabis is something that we need to continue to look at and benefits, the whole community, if not, the whole nation and the world by really just going into what else can we do. There's also other products that can be made. There's food products. There's also just different kinds of medications that could be used, lotions that you could rub on, and so forth. So there was just a lot that I've learned in the workshops that we had here with different companies coming in, different firms and experts explaining to us the benefits of medical marijuana. And then later on during the year, we had a number of workshops where we went out into the community. We went to a number of different schools and our parks and try to talk about the different, what our goals are as a community. One of the issues that were brought up as far as security was for the police department was they did not want to support dispensaries, and they did not feel comfortable with that. So that's something that we're not going to pursue, I think, in this first ordinance that we're looking at. But we're looking at all the other aspects of manufacturing and cultivation. So I think this ordinance reflects a lot of the input that the city council had, that our police department had, and from a economic standpoint, the revenue that could be brought into the city could really help stabilize our budget throughout the years. A lot of times we're just barely in the black. With this, I think we'll be able to do a lot more programs for the city through the revenue that it would bring in and help out in the city in those areas. But I know that our police department, I spoke several times to our chief about his concerns that they had in the public safety area with medical marijuana, and they had a lot of input in the ordinance. I know the ordinance went past your desk, Chief Taylor, quite a bit, and they put a lot of what they felt were the safety concerns that would be required to be able to keep the community safe when we have these types of facilities throughout our community. We're also making sure that they're zoned within the proper areas. They're not close to homes. They're not close to schools. So that therefore, we think they're probably for the most part. I think that from what I've learned about these facilities, you won't even know they're there. They'll just look like a warehouse with a few cars parked in front of them, and it'll just blend in with the community. There's some jobs that'll be brought in and help out in the community through by the number that you have. So I think with that, I am in support. I think that that many times Baldwin Park kind of misses the boat. We always tend to be a little slow in watching other cities take advantage of these types of economic issues that come out in our community that we don't really grab onto them. But I think hopefully we're one of the first cities that look at this and we look move forward in this area. So I am supportive of it, Mayor. So Mayor.
All right. Yes. Go ahead. Council members have any other?
Oh, just one more thing, and I apologize for being late.
Okay.
I mean, as you all know, this is not our regular council meeting. This is a special meeting. We happen to have another one on Monday and another council meeting, so this has been an overwhelming week, to say the least. But I apologize if I repeat myself, if someone else made comments. But I know it's in here, and I'm sure you probably expressed it, but we are looking very carefully at all people that are interested. Just want to make sure people understand that we are looking into, character, history, feasibility, financial status. I mean, there's just so much that we're looking into. It's not going to be done easily. It's going to be done very carefully. And just from my personal perspective, I know a lot of the union organizations are concerned, and so we also took those issues into consideration. We want to make sure that workers are taken care of. We want to make sure that the working conditions are, excellent working conditions, and that the workers are also brought into this equation because they matter to us as well, not just the industry coming in or people coming into our city, but the workers that they hire. We want to make sure that they're taken care of. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Yes, Councilmember Cruz Baca.
I just have a question, real brief, because I know we have to get going pretty soon. Robert, I was asked by several people, and they didn't attend, if the policy that if we adopt it tonight, will it be on our website? Because they wanted to take a look at it.
The ordinance will not be on the website tonight because until it has the second reading, so it would not be on there. But I think anybody could get a copy of it if they so desired. And certainly if anybody contacted my office, I would provide a copy.
All right, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Ricardo Pacheco.
If I'd like to just put this out there and we could continue discussion if needed, but I'd like to make a motion to pass item number 1, a request for the consideration of ordinance numbers 1400 and 1401 related to the amendment to the city municipal on medical and adult use of cannabis zoning in the I and IC and rules and regulations for the manufacturing, cultivation, and distribution thereof, and continuing the ban on dispensaries.
All right, there's a motion. The second by Councilmember Cruz Baca. Any objections?
I object for the reasons I stated earlier.
Okay, one objection, Madam City Clerk. Roll call, please.
Could I, just one
Yes.
minute, please clarify the motion? Was this for the ordinance 1400 and the 1401, which repeals the previous ordinance?
Yes, I just read it the way it was written here.
Fair enough.
Is that
I just
fair?
wanted to clarify, sure.
Okay.
Councilmember Pacheco?
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia?
No.
Councilmember Cruz Baca?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem
Do I need to read this?
Yes.
Bill? Mayor
I need to
Lozano?
read this.
Yes, the motion passes 4-1.
Yeah, hold on, man. Let me just make sure that, I'm going to clarify the motion. I just want to make sure I did
Go
it
ahead,
correctly
that's
here. Also, just to add to what I just said, recommendation from staff, item A, staff recommend that the council open and public hearing, well, I guess you read that, right, Mayor? And hearing. Okay, do I need to read that part in the ordinance?
No, I think you would just need to say a motion to adopt ordinance of the City Council of the City of Baldwin Park, California, amending Baldwin Park Municipal Code Table 153.050.020, allowing medical and adult cannabis cultivation, distribution, and manufacturing uses, the deletion of subsections 153.120.330.c and 153.120.330d of the city's municipal code, if that was your intent.
Yes, that was my intent, so that's my motion as the city attorney clarified it.
All right, okay, thank you very much. So it was seconded by Councilmember Cruz Baca, and there was one objection, there was a vote, and the vote ended up being 4-1. All righty? Okay, council members, if not, at this point, I will move for adjournment.
Second.
Any objection? See none, so move. Viva Baldwin Park. Good evening, everyone.
Well, if anybody's hearing, we have a concert that we need to all rush. I don't know if you guys are
Yes.
going, but we have a concert at Morgan Park, so everyone's welcome to join us. Thank you.
You know what? I think I'm going to go change too. Yeah. Just to be more comfortable.
Christie?
That one?
You have a moment.
Thank you, Mayor.
I know what we're going to talk about.
Lozano said yes also, right? What's that? Lozano said yes also. Yeah. Good night, Mayor.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Hey, Todd.
Japanese.